Welcome to Watch of the Week on Caseback. This is a series of brief reviews of recently introduced timepieces. It's not a commercial, it's not paid content. You will hear my unfiltered opinion about certain watches. And our guest today is the 6th of May 1970 was an important day in the history of wristwatches, because back then the world saw the first digital watch, a quartz watch named after neutron stars, which emit very precise radiation. And therefore the watch was seen as a part of the space age, although it was developed for the civilian market. And during the Tonight Show in the United States, Johnny Carson in the 70s demonstrated the functionality of the watch. After a push on the button on the side of the watch, the time was legible in red numbers. And if one held the button, you could see the passing seconds. And in the bracelet was an integrated magnetic strap, and with this strap one could set the time. And it was advertised not as a watch, it was advertised as a time computer. And here you see an old ad in Playboy magazine which demonstrates this. And by the way, often people confuse digital with quartz, but in fact there are mechanical digital watches where a mechanical movement sets numbers in motion which form the time. But this here was a quartz piece, not the first quartz watch, but the first digital watch. And the watch was in shops 1972 as the P1 and came with an avantgardistic cushion form case and an 18-karat gold bracelet. The price back then was $2,100 and this was the equivalent of a family car. And so this was not the watch for the mass market, it was a watch rather for celebrities. And one of the first owners was Elvis Presley. He had a known weakness for fine watches, made for instance the Ventura famous. Now it weren't the Man in Black. And in later years Hamilton introduced the P2 for the mass market. Other case form, an improved chip and more affordable, and the watch was then very popular, was seen as cool. P2 wearers were Keith Richards, Joe Frazier, Elton John, Giovanni Agnelli and the US President Gerald Ford. And the weak spot here, the weak spot of these watches, of these old watches, was the battery. The old LED technology needed a lot of energy, and so that was the real reason behind the button, the reason why you could see the time only for a second. But despite that, the watch was a big success for Hamilton, and the hype was fueled by the watch's appearance in film and TV. It was made iconic 1973 by Roger Moore in Live and Let Die, where Bond sported the P2. And if you don't like Bond, it was also seen on the wrist of Lee Majors in The $6 Million Man in 1974. And now comes the reissue of this legend in two slightly different models, a steel version and a gold-plated version, the latter limited to 1970 pieces, reference to the year. And the major difference is the hybrid display. It shows the old numbers when you push the button, so those numbers made of dots or parts, but you can read the time now also under broad daylight thanks to modern display technology, so the time is always visible but brighter with the button. And now let's speak about measurements and the price. The correct measurements is 40.8 by 34.7, so let's say 41 and 35. But my experience with cushion foam watches is that they were big. They were really, really big. And so I think you have to see this thing on your wrist to say if it's too big for you or not. The height is still unknown, at least I haven't found it on the internet, and the lug width is 24. And as mentioned, digital quartz watch with an LCD and OLED hybrid display. OLED stands for Organic Light Emitting Diodes, by the way, which was new to me. Anti-reflective sapphire, water resistant to 100 meters, and steel case with a steel bracelet, except of course the PVD gold-plated version. And the price for the steel version is 695 euros or 745 US dollars. And the price for the PVD gold-plated version is 945 euros or 995 US dollars. And as a little goodie here, I give you a link to the presentation by Johnny Carson. It's here in the description, the link, and then you find the presentation here on YouTube, and maybe this is interesting and entertaining. And so that's all about the Hamilton PSR. See you next Monday here to Watch of the Week on Caseback.